Hello friends, it's Dylan Young here. Today I'm going to be talking about some new capabilities with Sitecore AI around personalization, my favorite topic. As you may have noticed, a video I released a couple months ago was talking about how to create conditions with Sitecore Personalize. Today I'm going to cover the exact same topic, but I'm going to cover how to do it with Sitecore AI. This is an important topic to talk about. I think for those that are new to understanding where Sitecore AI is going, it's bringing in more of those features from Personalize, from Search, from other products into the product, into the core product of Sitecore AI. And so this shift that we're going to be talking about, these conditions that we're going to create, or just the one that we're going to partially create, we're not going to get all the way through, is built on top of a completely different platform. So there's actually going to be a lot of different nuances that have changed with how we write these conditions over the traditional method. Now, it's still pretty early. It was released, this capability was released only, I think, maybe less than a month ago. So, something to keep in mind. It may still be slightly buggy. There might be still some things they have to work out. But for the most part, I think this is really a great topic because this is where the product is going and covering how you might create those same sort of conditions inside Sitecore AI without needing to go purchase a personalized product or anything like that is a pretty useful topic. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump in. All right, so let's jump in and start covering how we start working with these conditions. It's a little hard to or tricky to find where the editor is. Obviously, there are the traditional page level experiences or page level personalization that exists. So if I click on a page and just a back step a little bit, I'm in the current page builder. I'm under a specific environment and I'm under a specific site for this video series. And I've gone ahead and clicked on a page, and then the traditional page level personalization is underneath the personalize option here. And then you can create a variant, and then that will allow you to use existing conditions out of the box conditions. But what I want to do is create new conditions. There is a way, once you go and create a variant, you can actually define new conditions from that path. But there's actually another option, which is a new capability as well, is the component level personalization, which I'm going to cover in a future video, not for today, but it's a great way to access this condition builder. So if I click this option, it takes us into that component level personalization. I can create a table. What you select, it really should be conditions. So you have, I still get the sense that this is in a state of flux, so some of this may change in the future. Now on the left, this code assistant is not active because I'm on a organization that doesn't have Agentic Studio enabled. So if you did, you'd see this option and then you'd be able to use it. I do have access to one that does have Agentic Studio. Obviously, I did a video, I think it was a few weeks ago, on Agentic Studio. So at some point, I'll cover this in for more. I'm going to focus mostly. So some things have changed. So like I said, this is building a condition or a rule essentially for Sitecore AI, and this lives within Sitecore AI. It doesn't use the same infrastructure as previous Sitecore Personalize would use. So you have a little bit different interface than you did before. Kind of this different like the editor looks a little different. You used to have to come to a page and you click at it and you go in and then you code. This is directly coding. The test environment is slightly different. You're dealing, instead of dealing with a guest, you're dealing with a profile. So it's kind of a different nuance there. Profiles I'll be also covering in a future video, so we'll cover that topic as well. But we have this concept of being able to load existing profiles, or we planned on creating a video about Sitecore Personalize and testing. I'll probably do that here for Sitecore AI instead. Custom profiles to represent. And then when you run one of these tests, you'll get a response. I'll run this real quick, and you can see it returns a test result, and it also returns a console.log. I'll jump into this a little bit more in a second. If you're a long time Personalize user, you'll notice that we're using console.log, so that's a big difference right off the bat. We're not using a print, we're using something more standard to what a JavaScript web. So that and then there's this stuff on the right. This is where you can provide a description, add some tags, and we'll get into parameters here in a second where it will define our parameters. So we're going to start out with the editor. So I'll say it right off the bat. The IntelliSense is a lot better. It seems like I don't even know if there was IntelliSense necessarily, or maybe it was very limited. So my recommendation, and this is probably a good recommendation across the board anyways, is to always save or save very often. We already called it out. We're using console.log versus print. The docs, as far as I can tell, are still kind of talking about how to do this with Sitecore Personalize. So it's really important to note that there's going to be some different. So what we're going to do is attempt to write some of what we might have written for my last video on Personalize and how to create conditions. But I'm going to manually write it, and I'll show that most of the syntax is still the same, but there is some differences. So the first thing is I'll create a parameter. So I'll create a date parameter. This is relatively the same as required. So some of the IntelliSense isn't perfect because it doesn't tell us really what should be written here. Min is 1 and max is 30. And you'll notice as soon as I finish that, now we have a parameter over here. Now, like I said, save often. So I've written that. Let's save it. Keep the proper syntax by using. So that's pretty straightforward. I'll add one more. I'm not going to add another possible parameter just because it's not necessary for this example, but we could do return value equals false. And then we'll get down here. So we'll actually write the logic. So the thought here, same as the last video where I cover personalized. If a user has visited in a certain number of days, and then being able to personalize specific pieces of content, either page level personalization or component level. The way the code was before was using guest, but guest doesn't exist anymore. So it actually has been replaced with profile. And actually, you can sort of see that from the IntelliSense, which is helpful here. You can get a sense of all the kind of scenarios for this. So profile.sessions. So you can get a sense of how to, access these parameters. So the way it was written before was, just checking if profile has a value, if profile dot sessions have a value, and then doing a profiles or profile dot sessions dot length is greater than 0. My guess is the way that the condition was written in all the conditions I created for kind of personalized in the past, they assumed an older version of JavaScript for this. It's not totally clear what version of JavaScript this is written in or what this allows, but I'm assuming there's probably more flexibility to write more modern versions of JavaScript for this, but it's not totally clear what that is at this point. Like I said, the documentation hasn't been updated, so I don't know. I assume that will. So that's pretty much all I'm going to cover for today. Just kind of highlighting this new feature. Upon save, I'm assuming upon publish, then you would see this show back up. So you would see it here as published, same as you would for these out of the box the component level personalization as well as inside the page level personalization, and you'd be able to use it the same. You wouldn't see anymore your Sitecore Personalize conditions. You'd just see Sitecore AI conditions that you're creating or ones that are available out of the box. And with that being said, I think that covers today's topic. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.